Did you know that prebiotic fibers are shown to improve the makeup of beneficial bacteria in your gut? Today's episode is sponsored by my favorite prebiotic fiber supplement, Sun Fiber. Sun Fiber is a partially hydrolyzed guar gum that is soluble and low FODMAP, meaning you get the benefit without any excess gas. Talk with your provider to see if this is right for you, and then you can check it out at sunfiber.com. Now let's get into today's episode. Welcome to a nice little bonus episode. This episode was not originally planned for our last season, but as we wrap up the year, one of the biggest questions that I've been asked throughout the year is, what do you think of this product? What do you think of this trend I've seen? What do you think about this? And so I decided, as we're wrapping up 2022, to make a list of some of the top common kind of IBS and gut health trends that I've seen out there, different kind of products and things that are either on social media or maybe seen in ads online, and break down whether or not these are valuable for gut health, who could benefit from them, what would be better alternatives, what to think about, and help you understand as a consumer kind of how to dig through this information and these different trends and products to determine if they're right for you. So we're going to go through each one of the trends, and I'm not going to cover every single trend that's been out there for the entire year because I just can't, especially in a podcast episode. But what I can do is cover some of the big ones that I've seen and have some insight on. So we're going to start first with one that was big on TikTok, and still I have a review about this on my own TikTok page, and it's been growing significantly every single day. And that is the internal shower, or this chia seed water trend. So if you're not familiar with this internal shower, what it is, it's a recipe of a chia seed drink. So it's 2 tablespoons of chia seeds mixed into a tall glass of water, so 8 to 12 ounces, and lemon juice. Now, the claim of this chia seed water is that it can help eliminate constipation and clear out constipation if you're backed up. So the original creator, kind of made it as like, I've been using this recipe for a long time. If you're backed up, use this. And a lot of creators out there have, really talked about this from I'm traveling and I'm backed up, or I haven't pooped in a few days. This is what I do, is I do this chia seed water or internal shower, because it's internally kind of clearing everything out. So the reality of this, kind of backed up to the claim, is that this actually can be really effective, but it may not be needed in this form specifically, and it may not work for everyone. So like everything, when it comes to diet strategies for even constipation, if we're going to niche down to there, not everyone with constipation responds to the same things. Not everyone with gut issues or bloating, whatever, respond to the same things. Not everyone benefits just overall in terms of their gut health from the same things. So this can be super effective, but we need to understand more of the nuance to determine how you could utilize this chia seed internal shower combination in your life if you have constipation. Now, if you have diarrhea, the benefits of chia seeds are going to still be beneficial, but you may not try to implement a large load of them for this reason. So it's not likely going to cause diarrhea. Drinking it like this could, but the chia seed benefit is still there. So even if you have diarrhea, I still want you to listen to what is available here in terms of what we know about chia seeds, because it could still be beneficial. So the value of chia seeds is that they contain a large amount of fiber, very significant amount of fiber, especially in a small portion size. And in particular, they have a large quantity of soluble fiber. Soluble fiber dissolves in water, which we see whenever you mix it into the water. If you've ever made like a chia seed pudding where you're soaking it overnight in like a milk of some sort, or you've put it in a smoothie, if you've allowed chia seeds to soak in water for even a little bit of time, you'll notice they kind of gel up. So they absorb that water and they gel up. That is the soluble water, or soluble fiber effect that they're having. This soluble fiber load, so a large amount of soluble fiber, can stimulate the movement of gut muscles, so the peristalsis of those muscles in your gut, because its fiber is not broken down, and it kind of irritates them a bit. So it creates sort of that tactile stimulation, right, of those muscles. And it can also help form stool or poop for a well-formed bowel movement days later. So it's going to help with stimulating that movement and clearing, but it's also going to help form poop because of that soluble effect that it's having in the water where it's gelling up. It's going to do a similar thing inside your body with your poop so that you have a good formed stool to pass, right? And so the value is still going to be there, whether you eat the chia seeds over, throughout the days, or if you drink it all at once. You don't have to drink it, really quickly and take a shot of chia seeds in order to see this benefit. You can see it from eating it in a more desirable way or drinking it in smaller portions throughout the day. If that's your preference, it doesn't have to be in this one kind of way. And so whenever we're looking at, the benefits, they're great. The downside is that this large amount of fiber, especially, the insoluble fiber portion, so more of that shell of the chia seed, this can cause more bloating and gas for some. So if you have not eaten a lot of chia seeds, or maybe you've tried this trend and you're like, I got immediately bloated, and this bloat might improve as constipation clears, because we know constipation makes bloating worse. But it may not. You may see that you have a bowel movement, but you're still having a lot of gas and bloating as those chia seeds are actually making their way through your gut. Because when you drink them, they're not all coming out in your poop right away. They're stimulating that clearance of the stool. They're not there yet, because it takes about 24 to 48 hours to get down there. So that large amount, as it's passing through your GI tract, if you're not used to it, could cause you more bloating and gas. Now, this is a good process because your gut bacteria are fermenting this fiber and producing that gas. So they're also producing other byproducts that are beneficial and good for health. So it's not a bad thing, but it can be very uncomfortable. So if you're not used to eating these, I would start with a smaller portion as you're implementing them in any way that you decide to. So maybe a tablespoon of them versus 2 tablespoons of them would be more ideal versus going straight for this larger portion. Now, the next portion of this chia seed internal shower drink is lemon juice. So lemon juice is actually pretty high in vitamin C, and large amounts of vitamin C can have what we call an osmotic effect in the gut to stimulate movement. So what that means is that inside your gut, there's a lining, right? The wall of the gut is separating the inside of the gut from the outside of the gut. So osmotic effect means that whenever these chia seed or this lemon juice hits your colon, it stimulates water coming into the gut. So we're pulling water in, and that's going to help flush. So water coming in can help kind of move things through, but it can also help soften stool so that stool is easier to pass. So it's going to have that effect in both ways. You do need a large portion of this in terms of lemon juice to get this effect, this osmotic activity from the vitamin C. So it may not actually be effective for everyone to have that lemon juice coming in. That may not be what you're experiencing. Some people do kind of claim that it's the acidic nature, maybe the stomach acid production and movement that's happening there. Potentially, there's a little less data out there to really show that that's the case and that's what's really happening. But we do know that large portions of vitamin C can do this. So if you are drinking a large amount of vitamin C, you're putting a lot in there, it could potentially be having this effect in the body. So you could also use other vitamin C forms, especially supplemental vitamin C, like a whole food vitamin C powder. And that may have a better effect in terms of getting that osmotic activity if that's what you're looking for. So again, just like the chia seeds, if you're looking for a large amount of fiber, you can get it from eating the chia seeds. You can get it from implementing other fiber sources in your diet over that day. Same is true for vitamin C. You could get it through some lemon juice and have large amounts, or you can also get it in other forms that may be even more effective. And then, of course, the water side of the internal shower. It is no surprise. This is something I think we've talked about from the start of time. Like if you've ever been constipated, you probably hear drink more water, drink more water, drink more water. That helps flush and move things. That large amount of water also creates that tactile piece where it's stimulating the muscles of the gut to move. It's helping kind of move water through, which is kind of like that stream effect that helps kind of push things along, but it also helps soften stool. If you're well hydrated, then your body's not going to try to take all the water that you have available. And so usually what happens in the colon, remember that osmotic effect, we pull water into the gut. What typically happens in the colon is we're actually pulling water out of inside the gut into the body for hydration. That's where we reabsorb our water that we need. And so if you're not well hydrated, you're going to pull out all the water that's available, and that's going to make your stool much harder, which can cause it to move more slowly and make it more kind of difficult to pass, which would lead to some backup and constipation. And so if you're drinking plenty of water, your body has enough water to reabsorb and be hydrated, but then you're also able to utilize some water to actually stimulate that movement of the stool through the colon and the softness of the stool, so it's easier to pass. So drinking a large amount of water at once can create that stimulant effect, because it's all coming into the body, but then will also have a long-term effect of improving the softening of stool and the movement of stool. So hydration is going to be really valuable. And so who is this for and who isn't this for? If you like this trend, if you like the whole internal shower thing where you like drinking the chia seeds, I personally don't. It gets stuck in my teeth. I love the way chia seeds taste if I can flavor them. So it's not for me necessarily, but if you're like, I don't really care about the flavor of chia seeds, I'd rather put them in a liquid and drink them, and they help me and they don't make me overly bloated and I feel great on it. Great. There's no harm to this trend necessarily, unless who it's not for. The number one person is if you are severely impacted. So what that means is that you're not just constipated. It hasn't been just a day or two that you haven't gone, but if you haven't had a bowel movement in a week, or it could even be if you eat a really high fiber diet and you're used to producing a lot of stool. If it's been 3 to 4 days and you've released nothing, that stool is backed up in your colon. And if you are too impacted, that stool is going to create this stretching along the intestinal wall. And what can happen is that stretching then creates a traffic jam where things literally just can't get out. If you are putting more fiber in on top of that, fiber helps add bulk to stool, then that's actually going to create more of a traffic jam. So that can cause more impaction. And a lot of impaction can be really dangerous and cause perforation of the bowel, which is not good. It's not what we want. So if you are severely impacted, this is likely not going to be the most beneficial thing to start with. Ideally, you do want to call your doctor and talk to your medical team to figure out a better option, which may include maybe an osmotic laxative or a stimulant laxative, something that's not going to add more of a traffic jam, but really help clear that backed up stool. That's going to be more beneficial. And you may know that this is happening to you if you try this trend and you are very bloated, very uncomfortable, and it's not passing and you're continuing to be constipated. Same if you're eating a lot of fiber-rich foods. Some other people that this may not be beneficial for is if you are dealing with a lot of pain and bloating. So if you know that fibrous foods, like eating a lot of greens or certain fruits and vegetables, if those types of foods make you really bloated, the chia seeds are probably going to make you bloated. And that's not saying that they won't help improve the constipation, because you are still going to get those benefits, but there may be a better approach to at least building up your tolerance of fiber, helping identify what else is causing bloating and gas production for you. That may just include a lot more of a creative plan that's going to work better. And I would say that that's true for most of the people who are dealing with chronic constipation or that IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, constipation predominant type. Most of the time we need kind of a more holistic approach to the constipation that ideally will eventually evolve to having more fiber and things like this, but you may not start there. It may not be the best solution that's going to feel great in your body. And again, you're going to know if you try this, if you implement these types of foods and that's how you feel. It doesn't mean it'll never work for you, but it just may mean that we need to approach it a little bit differently. But if you are dealing with more occasional constipation or just things kind of get a little sluggish every now and then, maybe if fiber's dropped or changes in routine or whatever, this type of drink, if you like it, may be great. Or you could also have it in a different way, like the chia seed pudding, chia seed in like a fruit puree as sort of like a jam. All of that, are great options that can give you the same benefit. So the next trend is one that I was pretty hesitant to put in. I'm always hesitant to really review specific products because I don't want anything to ever feel like an attack against a company. But this is one that I get asked about, and honestly, their ads are very aggressive. So we need to talk about them. And that is Colon Broom. So Colon Broom, if I'm telling you very honestly what it is, it's overpriced psyllium husk powder. So it claims to eliminate bloating. It claims to cleanse the colon, which is where that broom word kind of comes in, and result in weight loss. So in their ads and in their marketing, they really do put a lot of attention on weight loss, which if you've been in my community very long, this is more of a personal professional opinion, kind of my stance and where I am is I don't like to put weight loss and gut health together too much because I think there's nothing wrong with it from just kind of a base point of view. Like, yes, you can achieve weight loss and gut health. Some of the things that will achieve both will overlap, which is great. But if we're focusing so much on weight loss and letting some of those ideals come into play, the idea that thinness is healthier, things like that, that's kind of rooted in diet culture and weight loss, that can be really problematic from a gut health perspective and get in the way of true strategies that do help with gut health. So I don't love that they do this when their product is really more of a gut health and digestive health product, but this is what they really claim, because fiber is very helpful for regulating blood sugar management. We know that with fiber-rich foods, that's why we recommend whole grains, but psyllium husk powder in particular is really helpful to help stabilize blood sugar levels, which then may potentially for some result in weight loss. It's also helpful to increase satiety or fullness and satisfaction from a meal, which then would lead to overall reduction in calorie intake. For some, that could result in weight loss. For some, that could be problematic. So again, I don't like that that's the focus, but that is where that comes from. Psyllium is also very effective for improving motility, like gut motility, that movement of the GI tract, as well as regularity for bowel movements. So we know that it can help improve the form of stool, so it can help improve diarrhea, and it can also help the movement of stool and passing of stool, which can help constipation. So it's one of our preferred fiber supplement sources when it comes to kind of IBS or poor bowel movements and regularity, because it can be very effective, and we know that it's very effective. For some, just like the chia seeds, this fiber supplement could increase bloating and gas. It has, it is a soluble fiber supplement overall, but it can be a bit more fermentable and may potentially cause a little bit more gas for some. So it's not going to be well tolerated by everyone. And so it's something that we just have to kind of consider and think about. When it comes to this product specifically, Colon Broom, it is very expensive. So the biggest con, the pros are there. Psyllium husk is phenomenal. It is a great fiber supplement, but the product itself is much higher priced than other psyllium husk products that you're going to find on the market. And it's not necessarily superior in any way. And so you don't really need this specific product to get these benefits. You can get it for probably less than half of the price at just its natural whole plain form and still see the benefits that you're looking for. So if you want to spend money on the product, if you like their community, if you like that marketing, great. If you like the product itself and you want to spend the money on it, that is always your choice. Nothing really harmful there. But if you are interested in those benefits and you don't want to spend that money, then you could look for psyllium husk powder in a different form. Now, just like the chia seed conversation, this is not going to be really great for people who are having that impaction and severe constipation backup, because again, it is going to cause a traffic jam and it might back you up and kind of lock you up even more, which is not what you're looking for. It's also not ideal for someone who's not hydrating their body. If you do not have good hydration, that psyllium, it absorbs water so fast. If you ever mix psyllium into water, it's like absorbs the water and can get kind of hard. It's doing that in the gut, which is why it helps with diarrhea and constipation. But if you are not hydrating well, what that's going to do is harden your stool and again, lock you up. So it's better to make sure you have hydration improved first before you implement this, or be really intentional when you're implementing psyllium husk into your life, because you want that. There are also plenty of other fiber supplements that can be great. And so this isn't the only option that's available if you don't like the palatability of it or the look of it, the texture of it, or whatever it may be. So there are other options. This one is just in this specific product.
So we all know by now that fiber is beneficial for gut health. But for many, increasing fiber-rich foods can lead to more gas, bloating, discomfort, and overall frustration. Or it becomes difficult to sustain every single day, especially with travel or social events. Sun Fiber is a prebiotic fiber supplement that is gut-friendly as a soluble, low-FODMAP fiber source. Sun Fiber containing products typically contain 5 to 7 grams of fiber per serving. And the best part is that it mixes into water or food without adding any color, flavor, or texture. This means you can easily add this into your routine to increase your overall fiber intake and benefit the balance of your gut without the extra symptoms. Whether you use Sun Fiber daily to improve your gut microbiome, or you use it as you need additional fiber, this can be a great option that your gut may love. Talk with your provider to see if this is right for you, and then you can find your favorite Sun Fiber containing products at sunfiber.com. Now let's jump back into today's episode. Okay, now the next one, I know I'm going to get some backlash from because this is one that a lot of people are seeing benefit from. And I think where we get into this idea of, anecdotal, experiential results versus actual scientific data, and also the boundary between short-term results and risk and harm. And that is the trend of parasite cleanses. So what this is they're different protocols. So every company that offers these has a little bit of a different blend, but it's a blend of herbals, so herbal supplement blends that have anti-parasitic and antimicrobial effects in the body. There's also some different herbs in there that have been shown to improve things like digestive discomfort, maybe help with pain, maybe help with motility. So they have other effects as well, but specifically they have these kind of killing effects for parasites and other microbes, so anti-parasitic or antimicrobial. The claim here is kind of a deeper claim that chronic gut issues are a result of unidentified parasites in the body and in the gut. So we must kill them in order to resolve the symptoms. So there's this idea that, well, everyone, if you're dealing with chronic bloating, you've got a parasite. And so you need to do this cleanse in order to remove these parasites that are hiding in your body because everyone has them. And that's how you resolve your symptoms. Some people will claim that this is something that you only do if your symptoms are really bad. There are others that will claim that you do this through like moon cycles, or kind of just on a cyclical basis, no matter what, because you chronically need to be clearing because you're always going to be getting parasites from the food that you eat, water that you drink, things like that. So the truth here is that the protocols like this and these herbal killing protocol, regimens can be very effective for a variety of reasons. And that could be that they shift the microbiome, and even in the short term, that shift may feel good because we're possibly clearing out some microbes, some of which are good that we need, but some of which might not be doing us any favors. We know that, they could potentially kill off pathogenic microbes that may be contributing to symptoms. So looking at things like, SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, like there are some pathogenic microbes that we know exist. Possibly there's something going on there. We also know that they can have sort of a laxative effect for a lot of people and help stimulate clearing of the gut, which is going to help stimulate the release of stool. And whenever you're clearing stool properly, that's going to improve bloating, gas production, all of those things. So one of the top causes of bloat is actually constipation. You can be pooping every day and still be a bit constipated. And so these types of protocols may be helping with that, where they're kind of clearing out the stool. So they're making you feel lighter, like you've lost weight. They're making you feel like you have a flat stomach when you haven't in a long time, because we're reducing that bloating that's happening. When it comes to parasites themselves and parasitic infections, that's where things get a bit murky and controversial. So parasitic infections are very real. They can be extremely real. Usually these are the result of like contaminated food and water, typically in with travel in areas where they don't have great clean water sources or proper sanitation and food safety practices that are in place. And so that can happen. It can be fairly common for people who are traveling often, especially to those areas. These can be tested for, and they can be treated with drugs that are really known to work, to be effective, and to also be safe in the long term. The idea that we all have parasites in our guts, or that there are parasites that will never be identified that are hiding out, or on a regular test, you're not going to find this, but on these specific tests that these companies have developed, that there's no research really behind, that those are right, that those are going to identify the parasites that the other tests just can't. So your doctor's missing it. That's the message. That has not been proven. And it could be true, as a dietitian in this space, I don't ever want to say that I'm so naive to believe that what we know right now is all we know. There is always so much more that we can learn and so much more that we can know. But the consensus among experts in this field is that it is very highly unlikely that this claim is the case. It could be likely that there are these pathogenic microbes and imbalances that are happening in the gut, or some benefit in other ways to certain protocols like this. But the idea that we all have these parasites is very unlikely. And especially to this degree, right? To the fact that our bodies are not able to clear them. And we know this and we believe this because of how parasitic infections are known to affect one's bodies and the symptoms that can occur. Usually they will take over and it will be fairly severe. So just this chronic everyday bloating is not really a true pattern that we've seen over decades of research in relation to parasites. And again, that could change in the future, but there hasn't been anything to really prove the claims. And most of the claims that are made are very much anecdotal, which is more experiential versus true data. So even these tests that are available, yes, they're showing that people have these parasites, but their tests haven't really been validated. So to say that those tests are accurate would be wrong. And as someone who has, obtains a code of ethics to follow evidence-based information, I can't say that. That's not ethical for me to say because it's not really backed by evidence and science yet. And ideally it will be in the future if that's true. So there's the other side of it too, where, the other argument is that, well, when people do these protocols and these cleanses, they're passing what they call like worms or the parasites out of their body. So they see it in their poop and they're passing these worms or these things. And so that proves that these cleanses work, right? That's what they're saying. And the truth is, if someone really did have a worm or a parasite in their body like that, there could be a chance that they can pass it. It could happen. It's highly unlikely that this is what's happening for the majority of people taking these protocols. What the belief is that there could be a buildup of the ingredients themselves. Like these ingredients are not benign ingredients. They are killing protocols for a reason. They're fairly intense and there's a lot in there. We know supplements also aren't really regulated. And so there's just a lot of controversy to that alone. But there is a belief that there can be a buildup of these ingredients that can form this kind of worm-like consistency in the body because the body is not really able to fully process these, especially if they're moving through the body fairly quickly, if they're having a laxative-like effect in the body. There's also the idea that the binding effect of some of the ingredients, there's a lot of binders that are used. And the goal of that is that we're killing things, producing toxins from the killing, and we want to bind those toxins or bind those kind of byproducts so they don't do more harm in the body, which sounds great. But that binding effect can also create a binding effect to other things moving through your body and the ingredients themselves, which also can create these thicker kind of textured pieces that are coming out with your stool. And then another theory is that this actually could be part of the intestinal lining due to that disruption and the shedding that's occurring inside the gut itself, which would make sense because the consistency is very much intestinal lining. If you ever think about like a sausage, hot dog sausages that are in casings, typically those casings are going to be or they used to at least be intestinal linings. So think about that consistency and that texture. That's what you're seeing in many of these cases. Now, when it comes to using these, because people do seem to feel better on them sometimes. So the thought is like, okay, well, people feel better, regardless of if this is truly doing what it says it's doing, right? If you really have a parasite or not, like if you feel better, it should be fine, right? Like, is there any harm? And that's where I think there's the biggest risk that's being done and where I think the controversy is not being handled appropriately, because in a lot of cases, if you see benefit, just like with the chia seeds or the colon broom, right? If you see a benefit, there's no harm associated with those things. So it's fine. Like, even if it's a placebo effect, that's fine. But when it comes to these types of protocols, there can be a lot of harm that's done from these types of ingredients, especially when they're being used unsupervised, being used in cyclical patterns. There's a lot of people that, I've seen it on TikTok, especially where influencers are sharing that they've done them multiple times. And, the companies are marketing to you and they're allowing you to just go and buy these rounds of supplements, and they're not necessarily guiding you appropriately through how to use these. But these types of ingredients can do harm to the liver. They can do harm to the kidneys. They can do harm to the body. And if you already have maybe another health condition, if you're utilizing any medications, those things can interact with other disease states and medications that you're taking, which can do even more harm. As a practitioner in this space, I have seen many patients come to me who've been on rounds of these types of herbal protocols, all from good intentions, but they end up with kidney disease. They end up with liver failure. Like they end up in really worse states than where they ever began. Even if they saw these short-term benefits, these other effects happen after. And that's not something that I feel like is being communicated. And a lot of the people that are talking about these cleanses and these protocols are people who have just experienced themselves, and they're doing it again out of good intentions of, I felt better doing this, you may feel better doing this. They're not health professionals. They don't understand the nuance that can be there. They're pretty protective, so they're a little defensive if you challenge it. And so there's this fight happening, but no one's really talking about educating the consumer on the potential risk that is there. So, that's really something that's important to know. And another piece is that, we don't have a lot of good data on how these types of ingredients and these herbals, especially these killing type protocols and herbal blends, how those impact the gut microbiome. We know with like antibiotic use, for example, where a lot of people who have chronic gut issues, they may take an antibiotic and actually feel good in the short term, but then they see the negative effects of that antibiotic that they used because it cleared out their microbiome. So now they don't have their healthy microbes, they don't have a good balance of microbes, and it can actually do, if it's used chronically, that can do long-term damage to the gut microbiome in that environment. And so we don't know if these protocols have that same effect, and they could, because they're not being well researched, they're not being studied, and there's not a lot of money that's there to really research those compared to like pharmaceutical companies and those types of medications. And so, as a practitioner, again, in this space, I've seen the data over time. I've seen how things have been a trend and those short-term benefits and then what can actually happen. My biggest fear is that a lot of these are having negative impacts on the gut microbiome and may actually work against you in the future. So it's something that, again, you just want to be thoughtful about, you want to consider. And I always like to say, when we're really thinking critically about something, like what I would do with my clients and patients is, if you're having to cyclically use something and it feels like you only feel good when you use it and right after, is it actually working for you? Or if your symptoms are just kind of raging back, was that the problem, or did that cause more of a problem? Like, we really need to question that, because you shouldn't have to need something over and over and over and over again. And if you're chronically truly getting parasites, we need to figure that out, because that's a bigger problem than spending a lot of money and potentially doing some harm in the body with these protocols. So again, I know you may not agree, but that's the evidence that's there. And again, maybe in the future we'll have more. The next trend that I want to cover, I think hit more in 2021, but it's still all over the internet. And it's something that you have likely seen, especially with these kind of before and after photos and videos. And that is the Beachbody gut protocol. So Beachbody has been around for a long time. They really are in the weight loss kind of space. They sell supplements, workout programs, and then they have veered into these other spaces because there's money to be made, and they follow the money, like any kind of multi-level marketing like company. I'm not sure if they really fit into that umbrella or not, but they're basically like that, where there are these coaches and tiers, and they sign you up on the program. They make some money from your participation. They encourage you, share your results. You sign up to get people under you, that whole scheme, right? The goal is always money. The goal is what can make money. And so whenever digestive health really started coming to the forefront and getting hot, which a lot of these trends have followed under, Beachbody jumped on board and they created this gut protocol. It's a 4-week program that's being marketed for gut health, but it's really more centered around restrictive dieting and supplements. And this was kind of led, I don't know who exactly created it, maybe this person, maybe not, but it's led by a really popular Beachbody coach who is not a medical expert. I think it's really important to know she is not a dietitian. She is not trained medically in any way. I think she may have some sort of nutrition coaching certification, maybe under Beachbody, which is not the same as a 4-year degree plus supervised internship and practice, and being held to create like certain levels of CEUs every year and that level of training and code of ethics. Like, she is not held under that standard, but she has created this protocol. And if you have been through this program at all or seen any excerpts from it, if you've had the benefit of seeing things that people have leaked, you'll know that that's pretty evidenced by the fact that she makes a ton of errors in her presentation throughout the program itself. And even the way that it's being marketed, if you see how coaches are kind of marketing this program and this protocol, it is very much like clickbait, centered on weight loss, It's very vague, and a lot of them will start talking about the benefits, but there's no evidence really supporting what they're saying. And if you have any level of nutrition knowledge or even gut health and digestive health knowledge, then you can clearly like start seeing some of the mistakes that they're making and what they're saying and just how little they actually know. And again, it's not to talk poorly about them specifically as human beings. They're being taught to do this, right? Because that's how the process works, right? They need to be able to communicate it. They're given scripts or given templates to follow. That's why it all looks the same. They're being told to say the exact same things, but these things are not correct for the most part. Whenever you go through the program, some of the common foods that are eliminated, it does focus on elimination, of course, and that is gluten, dairy, corn, processed soy products, alcohol, and artificial sweeteners. They also limit, not fully eliminate, but limit coffee, added sugars, and red meats. And then they encourage 30 plant foods a week in fermented foods. So elimination plus encouraging these things. They also do recommend a lot of supplements. So the idea is kind of this whole idea of like clean eating, right? Where no processed foods, like whole foods, but of course, supplements that are not whole foods, which I think is always funny. But the supplements that they recommend are their brand of enzymes, pre and probiotics, and then their shakes. And I do want to just note that their shakes, a lot of them are high FODMAP, which we know can contribute to more digestive health symptoms and even not a great digestive health pattern for those with IBS specifically. That's what the science shows. So the problem of this protocol, it doesn't sound bad, right? It sounds fine, but the big problem is that the focus is more on counting calories and restricting portions for weight loss. Like that is such a main focus, which is really going to create more disordered eating, unnecessary restriction, and this disconnect from hunger, fullness cues, and connection to the body, which can all make symptoms worse, especially for digestive health. Again, thinness does not equal health. Thinness does not mean you're not bloated. Temporary results from restricting doesn't mean that the health of your gut is improving, right? There are some pieces to that are really important. And this idea that weight loss and gut health are the same is not true, but it's something that is woven through this program and can be taken away from this program if not educated properly. Many of the recommendations that are made in the program aren't really going to work for all populations, and especially the ones that they're targeting most, which is this IBS population and and GI conditions. Like they're really targeting these people, and one, they're not licensed or trained to do that, which is scary. The program is not set up for that and personalized for that. And so the people that are most targeted are likely not going to see the results that they're looking for and may potentially have worsened symptoms from some of the things that are given to them. And there are no true experts available to really personalize the program. So gut health is personalized at its core. And so blanket statements do not work when it comes to true gut health and optimizing gut health. And so that's a big problem. When it comes to the recommendations themselves, like, outside of the counting calories and that kind of overarching theme that's there that may not be as obvious at first, elimination of these types of allergens and things may make someone feel better. You may feel better eating more fiber-rich foods. We definitely know that fermented foods may be beneficial. We do know that 30 plant foods a week is definitely beneficial, but the fear around full elimination of certain ingredients may not be needed. So again, just this lack of personalization is there. Now, some people will say that they've seen a lot of great results. You may be one of them. Great. Happy for you. If you don't have an eating disorder from it, great. There's no harm there, right? If you've been able to implement more variety into your diet, if you feel like your quality of life is thriving, amazing. But if you feel restricted, if you feel fearful of foods, if your quality of life has now gone down, even if you've lost weight or whatever, I would just rethink the value you really got from the program. And even if you're thinking about going into it, considering the amount you're going to spend on all of these supplements and things that they're recommending, a lot of those aren't backed by much research either. And so you might find more value somewhere else, or even just focusing on plant diversity, like 30 plant foods a week, more fiber. You may see more benefit from that alone than needing everything that's recommended. And the coach that's leading it is a bit aggressive too. So there are better teachers out there, in my opinion. Okay, and so the last trend that I want to cover, another one that is all over the place and not very controversial, I don't think, but that is greens powders. There are so many types. You may know athletic greens like AG1. I think there's a company called Bloom out there. There are so many companies now that offer these greens powders. And what these are, they're powdered versions of basically a multivitamin that typically includes other ingredients as well, like maybe prebiotics, probiotics, and more. So they include the superfoods, spirulina, and different ingredients like that, maybe some different herbs. They all include kind of their own mix. Some of them are more synthetically made, more like a true multivitamin, maybe with some greens added in. Some of them are based more around whole foods, like dehydrated and made into powder. They all kind of have their own flavor of how they present, but they all do kind of claim similar things, and that's that they're going to fix all problems. Usually it's all problems, right? They're multi-purpose, related to energy, health, and digestion. Not all of them market to digestion, but many of them do. So what's the reality? The reality is that these powders could be beneficial if optimal nutrition is lacking, but they may not be the superfood or the end all recommendation that they may claim to be. And again, every marketing campaign looks different, so take that as you will. The problems here is that these can be very expensive, especially the really high quality ones. They can be very expensive. Many do contain these high FODMAP ingredients that might make symptoms worse. So you may be going into investing in this product and get excited about it, but it may include an ingredient that actually makes your symptoms worse, where you're more bloated, you have more gas, and you may still see a benefit from the other pieces of the supplement, but that ingredient could be making you feel pretty bad, which may lead you to be more confused and frustrated. Overall, though, there's really no harm to these, like for the most part, especially from the more reputable companies that are being a little bit more honest about what they're including and more of their ingredients. We're getting those third-party tests done and things like that. There's likely no harm. And they could be helpful. And so if you can afford them, if you take them and you like them, if you notice a benefit from them, then that's great. They're probably not going to do a lot of harm. They may make you feel amazing, especially just the addition of more nutrition and kind of optimizing that intake. We don't always get that much of variety in our diets. And so getting that level of, micronutrient intake may be beneficial and could be a good draw that you have, especially if you feel like you've just been depleted and down for a long time. Maybe it's something that could work, but these likely are not going to replace all of the benefits of a diverse plant-forward diet, especially for gut health. So ideally, if you are utilizing these types of powders, we would also implement more of a plant-forward, 30 foods per week, like really working on plant diversity and fiber intake, because that's going to be really beneficial for your gut and optimal health overall. So those are all the trends I'm covering for 2022. I know there are more. Maybe we'll do this again throughout 2023 as different trends come our way, because gut health is hot, right? It's been hot for a while. It's getting hotter. It's going to continue getting hotter. Companies are coming in. They're going to see more ads. Like, they want your money. It's part of it, right? Because there is money to be made, and there's also difference to be made. So always think about just critical thinking. Don't always just look at the marketing campaign, but really dig a little bit deeper into why are those claims being made, what's backing up those claims, and don't be afraid to ask companies about that. And then ask the question of, could this be harmful in any way? And that's a discussion to have with your trusted healthcare professional, and find those trusted healthcare professionals that are willing to have those conversations with you so that you can make the most informed choices about products and things that you use for your health and in your body. I hope this was enjoyable. Would love to hear what you think. So connect with me over on Instagram at erinjudge.rd or on the gut community on Facebook. I'm happy to hear what you think in your opinion or thoughts or whatever you may want to share from this episode. Have an amazing new year as we round out 2022, and I'll see you in 2023.